to The Breakfast Show. You are listening right across Australia on 87.6, 87.8 or 88, wherever you are on the Faith FM network. And this morning, you join by myself, Lawson, and sitting across from me, my good friend, Dr. Dan. How are you, buddy?
I'm well, thank you, Lawson. It's good to be here. It's a brand new studio for me.
Absolutely.
This
brand
old
new
news
setup.
for you, but,
brand new. I mean, old news by a week, by like 7 days, 8 days or so. And we have, of course, producer Shell getting it done on the decks. And of course, we need to acknowledge this morning, that it's not a very happy and pleasant time happening in Australia, obviously. The mass shooting happening in Bondi, the worst since the Port Arthur massacre. Yeah, almost 30 years ago now. And we're going to be spending the second hour of our show particularly highlighting the event, seeing, what we can find from it, making some points and whatnot. So you'll have to be listening in our next hour. But yeah, Australia really, really hurting.
Hurting right now, yeah.
Absolutely. And so it's a good time for those listening. Of course, we are Faith FM, to exercise our faith and at the very least begin praying for those who are involved, praying for those who have been, the recipients of violence and who have been injured, and definitely the families of the deceased as well. The current death count is up to 11, and I think that's where it will stay unless, some injuries in hospital or something like that get worse. Or at least, 11 victims, I believe.
And then one of the perpetrators.
One of the
well,
perpetrators.
So 12 total.
The other necessity that we have is to pray for the people who perpetrated this and their network, and what's happening there, and pray that some godly sense and some conviction would be put into them, to stop them from perpetrating such evil, or thinking that it was good. I pray that repentance can come from this, honestly. Look, we're going to be talking about this. We're going to be really opening up, getting into it. We've got Pastor Justin Lawman joining us in the second hour as well, our politics and prophecy correspondent from Canberra. So you guys will have to be listening to that, and covering. I've got a bit of insider information. I have a lovely little sister, my little sister Shelby, who is living probably 5 streets back from where the terrorist attack took place, the mass shooting took place yesterday, and some info. So we're going to be diving into it and, seeing what we can make of it, as people are really scrambling to make something of it. This has been the big questions from the initial act was, why is this happening? Why is, a mass shooting happening on Bondi Pavilion of all places? One of the most iconic Australian locations for like relaxation and peace and hanging out and spending time with friends and community. Why is such an act of violence happening? We'll be making heads and tails of it in our second hour, so you'll have to be listening then. We'll also be considering the news, considering good news as well. As we said, coming up in the show in our second hour, we're going to be covering the events of Bondi and trying to make heads and tails of it. Where also, what are you going to be sharing with us, Dan?
Yeah, some good news from a pastor in America who's come to the light on a particular doctrinal question of what happens after you die, and particularly to the wicked.
Wow. Okay. Fantastic. I'm really interested to see.
It sounds like a dire topic, but it's actually good news.
I'm keen to hear it. Good news from the space. Hey, and after this song, we are going to be jumping back into the Christmas story and into the shepherds and their interaction with the family.
You're listening to the Breakfast Show podcast on Faith FM. Positively different.
By myself, Lawson, sitting across from me, Dr. Dan, and producer Shell behind the decks. And right now, it is time for a quiz question.
The first one of the week. What did Gideon make from the gold earrings collected after victory? What did Gideon make from the golden earrings collected after victory? We've just covered the story of Gideon, but I don't know that we covered this. Not correct.
Okay, I don't know it. Well, I took a stab at what I think it could be, but
Yes.
oh, boom!
Dr. Dan in the house. He's got it.
Right, a good start, a powerful start from Dr. Dan. I'm not quite sure.
This is one you either know it or you don't.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You can't just put in your standard guess, Lawson.
Yeah, okay.
That's right.
I tried to. I said, it must be something like this, and it was not. So, hey, if you know the answer, 0491 064 669 is the number to text. Again, 0491 064 669.
And one last time with that question. What did Gideon make from the gold earrings collected after victory?
Hey, again, send through the answer. Let us know. Tell us how you're doing this morning. And as we, push towards our next hour and where we'll be covering the Bondi shooting and covering the events happening there, let us know your thoughts. Let us know, your connections. Let us know what you're thinking about. Hey, what's happening in Australia at the moment,
and how you're feeling about it, and any questions you might have. Not
Absolutely.
that we have all the answers, but we can ponder it with you.
We would love to dive into them. We'd also love to hear your questions on maybe a classic story. And I'm thinking, hey, maybe there's no questions to ask. But of course, we're going to be jumping headfirst back into Luke chapter 2, into the classic, the enigmatic story of the birth of Christ. Now, we had started with the first 7 verses, saying, this is the story of Jesus himself being born and the interesting details of the fact that, they had come to the city. There was no room in the inn. And what we actually covered with Skafy is that the word here for inn isn't actually motel or, like a lodging place, somewhere like this. But actually it was, the word being used here was like guest room or guest house. And,
Okay.
And Airbnb, or something like that. Yeah.
We run an Airbnb.
Essentially, what's happening here is that they're being, rejected and denied a space in the guest house or in the spare room of family.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Which adds a little bit of an extra layer to the story of really the kind of backlash and treatment that comes against Joseph. And this is the detail that's there initially is, Joseph and Mary, in verse 5 here, it's like to be registered with Mary, his betrothed wife, who was with child.
Yeah, right.
And so this, which is in and of itself a very
scandalous
statement.
Yes.
His betrothed wife with a child. And because of this, they're kind of rejected any place. She's seen as an adulterer and a traitor to her husband. He's potentially seen as a weak man, and he has his own struggles and doubts initially as well before he's, assured by an angel, hey buddy, like this is from God. Keep your wife, and he faithfully does so. And unfortunately, they're experiencing some ancient Palestinian prejudice because of it. So, anyways, this is where they're at, and so they're in the manger. They're in Jesus is laid in the manger in swaddling clothes, surrounded by donkeys and sheep. Well, probably a donkey and a sheep and a this and a that. A very, very humble scene for the birth of Christ, and no one being present there because, this was the other aspect that Skafy really brought out last week that I didn't even think of. This woman is on birth's doorstep, and no one wants to take her.
Yeah.
Not only no one wants to take her, but also they don't come. Like, no one in the small town of Bethlehem comes to even see the baby when it's born. No one wants to be a part of this because of the perception that, hey, this is a bastard child. This is a baby born out of wedlock. And so God starts calling people in from the highways and the byways, so to speak, to come and to, celebrate this birth that's happened of the Messiah, the Savior of the world. So we'll pick things up in verse 8. Do you want to read for us, Dan? We'll start in verse 8 and we can read down to verse 12.
Now there were in the same country shepherds living out in the fields, keeping watch over their flock by night. And behold, an angel of the Lord stood before them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were greatly afraid. Then the angel said to them, "Do not be afraid, for behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which will be to all people. For there is born to you this day in the city of David a Saviour, who is Christ the Lord. And this will be the sign to you. You will find a babe wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger."
Do you want to read 13 and 14 for us as well?
And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of the heavenly host, praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace, goodwill toward men."
Wow. What a scene.
And that's what we need right now in Bondi, isn't it? Peace and goodwill. But yeah, it is. It's incredible. Like as you were sharing before, where we're up to, like the Son of God born in a manger, in a stable, in amongst animals. Like we think of that in a romantic kind of a way. Like
Yes.
This is the Christmas story. Isn't it beautiful? You know, there's a cow there looking at the baby and, you know, and lowing gently. Like, you know,
Yeah.
it's all such a glorified, you know, beautiful scene in our mind. But the reality of it, man,
Yeah.
like this is a dirty, stinky, you know, makeshift last minute arrangement for something that should have happened in a much better environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And as well, you know, I think that romanticization where it's like, you know, the only place we could stay for the night is a manger. Like, oh, well, let's you know, it's like this. I guess we get this perception like that. Yeah. Again, this was, you know, nowhere else was available. This is the last kind of place that they could go, and they snuck in, you know, that like they rolled into town super late, and, you know, everyone was already asleep. Like we don't have these details here. The reality of the story is they rolled in, were rejected by literally everyone.
And then the angel comes and tells these shepherds of this great news. But you got to look for him in amongst animals. Like,
Yeah. Now I love how this interaction opens, which is all of the shepherds were greatly afraid. like they were greatly afraid. And then the angel said to them, "Do not be afraid." Again, you know, seeing a heavenly being in all of his glory, like this, you know, these are shepherds as well. I want to make sure that's really clear. These aren't priests in the temple. You know, this isn't the high priest, you know, doing his night shift and then he hears a voice from heaven. No, these are the only people who are open-hearted and willing enough to go and celebrate this, you know, amazing thing that's happening, the birth of the Messiah. A bunch of people like looking after their sheep at nighttime. This is amazing. Like this is amazing. These are your local tradies. Like this is who these guys are through and through. You know, shepherding was a big part of the economy of Israel and
the culture.
And their culture as well, deeply a part of their history. But for the rest of the world, like especially this time of Roman ruled Judea, like this is seen as lowly work by low status, low class people. It's hard to say these are tradies in Australia because I mean we live the tradie economy. You know, tradies are you know, making good money and looking after themselves.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of some kind of manual labor in Australia that doesn't get paid much, like that is like a low class manual labor, which is as I'm thinking of it, I'm like, we have the Fair Work Act and all this kind of stuff, which stops those two things from being true. But I know, Dan, you've spent some time living overseas. I've, you know, visited a few third world countries myself, and that's more, you know, seeing the kind of tradie habits over there, you know, bamboo scaffolds and people in thongs hammering things away, you know, just low class people building things. I know that. And I mean, over there as well, shepherds as well. You can see shepherds tending to their flocks. I was privileged to see that in Africa, like proper shepherds with a staff, you know, following their flock around. The only other context I'd seen that in Australia is like on the quad bike out the back, you know.
Or in the helicopter.
Yeah. One quad bike, one tractor, you know, something like that. This is like truly lowly, low class, unexpected people who are met by an angel. What do you think this is teaching us? What do you think this is showing us about what is God looking for in terms of whom he might reveal himself to and whom he might lead?
Well, yeah, we don't know a huge amount about these shepherds. I would guess, but I don't know, that they had been reading the Old Testament prophecies of the Messiah. But we don't know that. Maybe they weren't. But for whatever reason, God is not a respecter of persons. In fact, the memory verse for our kids this week is God does not look on the outward appearance as men do, but he looks at the heart. And so here's a case of God looking for people who would be ready to accept Jesus, the Messiah, coming as a baby in a manger. Like, obviously the scribes, the Pharisees, the rabbis weren't in that category. They weren't ready to accept him.
Yeah, they weren't ready. The other side of this story is that the Magi have begun to make their way into Judea at this point, and when eventually they'll get there, they'll say, "Hey, King Herod, we saw the star. Are you guys celebrating the Messiah? Where is he?" And then they're basically tasked with, without their knowledge, finding the Messiah in order to kill him. So this was an information that could spread far and wide. It would either be taken as a slight against the king by the king and his men, by King Herod and his men, or it would, be taken as, how the town has taken it, which is, that's just the baby, the out of wedlock baby of Mary, a known adulterer, and a known adulterer because of this unfortunate situation where she's fallen pregnant while being out of wedlock. Really, the only people that were probably, willing and open to accept this and to be led there and to be hanging out in a stable, in the late hours of the night, early hours in the morning, celebrating the birth of Christ, were a bunch of shepherds who I think were spiritual people, were godly people. The tide of Judea at the time was, and we got to acknowledge as well, they're not in Galilee, but in Judea, and even shepherds in Judea were incredibly spiritual people. People were looking for a Messiah at this time. False messiahs were popping up everywhere. At this time, you also had the completion of the nearing of the completion of the days in Daniel, the 490 day, the 70-week prophecy, and these things coming to an end, which were being considered by priests and prophets at the time. And so because of this, there was a real spiritual awareness and an openness and a heightenedness even among Judean shepherds. And we can see this, that they're called, "Hey, guys, like, I know it's on your heart. Like, you guys want to see the Messiah as much as anyone else. Come and meet him in a manger." This is the sign, and I love this. I love this part in verse 12. It says, "And this will be the sign to you. You will find a babe wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger." Hey, this is the sign. This is the grand prophetic sign from heaven. You'd be asking, is it, what is it? Like, is it something amazing? Is it miraculous? Is it that the baby
is it the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow?
Right? Is the baby already walking and talking? Something like that. Oh no, he's lying in a manger.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
He's in a stable with a bunch of animals. That's where he is. And I love, the like, maybe there would be room to doubt for these shepherds. Like, that was a really strange spiritual experience we all had at the same time. Should we trust it? And then you see all of heaven opened and a multitude of, heavenly hosts praising and singing.
Yeah, singing this great song. Yeah.
Yeah. Glory to God in the highest. And on earth, peace and goodwill toward men. I think that would be a pretty convincing moment in this whole thing of, we should probably
get up and have a look.
Yeah, we should probably go. And also a bit of a down payment on the idea that, and maybe legitimizing the idea that, hey, the Messiah, the one to save Israel, to save the world, to bring godliness to the world is born in a stable.
In a manger.
In a manger. So, yeah, very interesting observations. We're going to continue on with this story and look at their interactions.
You're listening to the Breakfast Show podcast on Faith FM. Positively different.
And we need a quiz answer. Please produce Shell.
Yeah, let's do it. Our quiz answer for quiz number 1 was an ephod.
Okay.
Yeah, you know what an
gold
ephod is,
ephod.
right?
Yeah. I thought
Gideon's gold ephod.
I thought they already had an ephod by this point, and this is why my mind didn't immediately go to it. But then they made a gold one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
That
it's slightly
became
different than the priest's one, which was all the different jewels.
And the gold one became a massive stumbling block.
Oh, who would have thought? Who would have, like that was the end. My initial answer was like an altar or something like that, but I was tempted to write an idol because I'm like,
that's true.
because that's
Did you write an idol? I think
I
we
didn't.
could.
No,
I didn't.
We could lodge an appeal on that one.
yeah.
He didn't write it.
I didn't write it. No, but I was tempted to write it because I'm just like, man, if they're collecting gold earrings to do something, like, it sounds like something that's eventually going to be falsely worshipped, and
It was.
it was. That's what happened. Hey, what is our next quiz question, please, Shell?
According to Psalms 34, what does the angel of the Lord do for those who fear him? According to Psalms 34, what does the angel of the Lord do for those who fear him? Our number here is 0491-064-669. We have one correct answer thus far, and Lawson is still typing, so we'll see from him as well.
I'm going to say this.
Nope. Not going to give it to you. Not according to Psalms 34. Anyway, it's definitely something he does for us, but no.
So,
Man, I am not having a good day.
so the thing that comes to mind is the Old King James for me. That's a bit of a clue. It doesn't roll off the tongue as easily in modern language.
But it is pretty commonly said, I think, amongst Christians.
The Old King James version
Yeah.
of it. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
According to Psalms 34, what does the angel of the Lord do for those who fear him?
Yeah, wow. Hey, if you know the answer to that one, hey, 0491 064 669 is the number to text. I'm racking my brain right now. I'm really diving deep and thinking, hold on. I think when you said Old King James, it's kind of what?
That was a clue that helped, was it?
That, yeah. Is it this? Is it?
I reckon we're onto it.
Is this the word? Yeah, okay. There we go.
Cool.
There we go. Hey, if you know the answer, 0491 064 669, send it through, even if it took you a little second to get there, like myself. Now, diving back into Luke chapter 2.
Now, something interesting that I was thinking about just as you were talking there, you're talking about at the same time there's these magi coming from the east, and that, they're given a similar message from God saying, go visit this new Messiah that's come to Israel. It's interesting. I was looking for that story in the Bible, thinking, is this in Luke also? Because Luke has the most detail of all the Gospels on the Christmas story, but no, it's not in Luke. It's in Matthew.
Yes,
and I was just thinking about why would Luke not include it, but Matthew would, and I think I have a reason for that. But I'm curious, Lawson, do you have what makes sense for you as to why Luke would record the shepherds and Matthew would record the wise men coming from the east?
Yeah, great question. I would say, well, I mean, from a the way they're written perspective, I know that Luke is really dealing with night of, but he could have included, and 3 months later, this or some months later this happened.
So this is my theory, and look, I'm not, this is me just thinking on the spot about it. all of the gospel writers emphasize a different perspective
Yes.
on Jesus. Like John, you read the Gospel of John, Jesus is clearly God. John says the word was God. Like that's the intro to the book, and it's in John that Jesus says, "I am," and a bunch of things where Jesus is God clearly. In Matthew, he is king.
Yes. Wow.
In Luke, he is man.
Wow.
And so, as man, like as a human, the story of the shepherds really just emphasizes the humanity and the lowliness of Jesus coming as a babe in the manger, and the first people to be told that good news are shepherds.
Yeah, absolutely.
And whereas in Matthew, and so these are not all contradictory. They're different angles on the same wonderful truth and the same person, but they bring out different aspects of who he is. And so the story of Matthew emphasizing his kingship is the story of the wise men coming from the east.
Yeah,
is fitting for a king, and they're the ones interacting with Herod. Didn't go tell the shepherds, go find this baby, I need to worship him. Like that came through the interaction with the wise men.
Yeah, absolutely. I also see the wise men as more of a specific fulfillment of prophecy, their arrival, which is also something that Matthew in particular is really, it's one of the big objectives of the Gospel of Matthew is to show how Jesus fulfilled the prophecies about the Messiah repeatedly and continually. And, of course you have the powerful passage, but this is Micah 5:2, the prophetic passage. But you, Bethlehem, out of you shall come a ruler. Again, that focus on king there, who will shepherd my people, Israel. And I think, we can see, I think in Micah chapter 5 verse 2, you can see both of it. Firstly, his acknowledgement as a ruler by other rulers. And then secondly, his acknowledgement as a shepherd by other shepherds.
Yeah.
And
that ties into the story well.
Yeah. So we can see that, both in Matthew and in Luke, we can see the fulfillment of Micah, which is really awesome. But hey, picking up the story again, let's start to read here from verse 15. Now, the angels, the whole host of heaven singing the heavenly chorus and heavenly choir, which, man, you'd love to be there to hear. Look, I've been privileged to go to a bunch of Christmas carols and Christmas concerts. And
have you ever been to Handel's Messiah at Christmas?
No.
Handel's
and
Messiah
that is my
down,
dream.
Yeah.
That is the dream.
It is so intensely just amazing.
Yeah.
And when it's done well, but every rendition of Handel's Messiah is that I've heard is done really amazing. Like it's just such an amazing piece of work that
I feel like it's one of those pieces of music that when people attempt it, they're either doing it because they're really legit or they just don't attempt it.
Yeah.
But hey, no, I concur. That's like probably my next my bucket list. My next bucket list Christmas thing to do is to be able to see Handel's Messiah. But I've been to a bunch of concerts. I've been to a bunch of Christmas concerts, even, very low key, very, local kinds of things. But yeah, look, two very professional things as well, but none of them compare to what these guys would have heard coming out of the heavenly chorus. Like this would have just been incredible. And let's pick it up with their reaction in verse 15.
So it was when the angels had gone away from them into heaven that the shepherds said to one another, "Let us now go to Bethlehem and see this thing that has come to pass, which the Lord has made known to us." And they came with haste and found Mary and Joseph and the babe lying in a manger.
So we see here that their reaction is, hey, we should do what it says.
Yeah.
We should do
and
what
they
it
did
says.
it quickly. They made haste.
Yeah. I want to ask you a quick question about this. I think this is an interesting question. So these guys get to experience something that many people claim to want to experience, which is God literally comes down from heaven, well, an angel, a representative of God, and says, hey, I'm an angel. You can see that. You can, here's all the other angels singing. Go and do this. And these guys are obedient. These guys are obedient and they go and do it. They go and, be about it. Do you think that, and I mean, I was about to ask a question, but I want to give this little bit of a information first, is that this is often the scenario that's cited by particularly people who don't believe and they say, hey, I would believe in God if he could just do this for me, essentially. Mm-hmm. He could just rock up, appear out of the sky, and make himself clear and known to me. Then I'd believe him, I'd follow him, I'd love him, I'd acknowledge him as real. Why do you think this is happening for them? And do you think that's a right reading of the scenario that, oh yeah, like this is, really to appease maybe their non-belief? And
no, I don't think that. I think these guys, these shepherds, were already believers in God. So that there is the odd story where you've got, say, the Apostle Paul, who was Saul, who, Jesus appears to him in a similar kind of a way. Yeah. And suddenly Saul becomes a believer in Jesus. But he was already a believer in God. Yeah. And he was just, so the reason that God appeared to him was because he wasn't following the true representation of God at that time. He was following a representation of God that was a little bit outdated and a little bit skewed. Sure. So, God appears to people in ways to give direction to people who already believe in him. But I'm just struggling to think of a time when God says, hey, I'm here, you atheists, but you better believe in me now. Yeah. Like, that just doesn't happen.
At least biblically, especially, think, I'm trying to go like, oh, I'm right there with you. We just don't see an example of someone who's predisposed completely to not believe in God. Then God rocks up to them and says, hey, do you believe in me now? All of the people who he shows himself to already have like a predisposed belief in God and, an ascension in their mind of, yes, like I believe that God is real. A lot of those people that he appears to aren't necessarily strictly following him at the time, or doing the best thing. I'm thinking of the likes of, maybe Samson or even Gideon or Moses, where it's like, they're not in like maybe the most faithful of positions. They're not 100% sold out to God when they appear to him, but they have this predisposition of belief towards him. And
I guess there are situations where God, I'm trying to think of something, and maybe Nebuchadnezzar would be one where, you could say God appeared to him and he became a believer through that. But it's a very indirect way of appearing to Nebuchadnezzar, giving a dream, and then, the reason that he became a believer was because the influence of Daniel, the prophet Daniel. Yeah. God kind of appeared to Pharaoh through Moses, not really directly appeared to him, but, miraculous things happened. All of his stuff was getting destroyed. And he didn't become a believer. Like, there's so many stories of people where God's miraculous intervention appeared and they were predisposed to disbelief and they continued disbelieving.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So I think this is an important point that we're making here, that, hey, if you're someone who openly says and wants this and asks for this and says, oh, hey, like I would believe if God would show up miraculously like this. Well, firstly, at least according to the Bible, God has done everything that, I'm thinking particularly of Romans chapter 1 and Romans chapter 2, where it says, hey, God is provable through the world that we see around us. Furthermore, he's provable through the revelation of his word, which is the amazing thing about the word of God is that it naturally within itself contains that supernatural evidence where you really can see God show up. And I think specifically of prophecy, where, you can look at something that is it's both testable and observable and supernatural, which is amazing. And so you can see God clearly there. And honestly, I can think of my own experience, and I won't dive into them, but I've definitely had some very specific spiritual experiences, like some very unexplainable spiritual experiences. I would say that are supernatural. And I feel kind of crazy saying it, but I'm like, no, it's undeniable. Like this specific thing happened, like I saw the thing, I heard the voice, like it's, I was there. I'm not crazy, but that happened as a result of, I said, hey God, like I want to open my life to you. I want to.
So
I
you
wanna
were
get to know you
already
better." Yeah.
believing.
I was
and
believing.
he revealed himself.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, yeah. And look, there's stories also of people, like I'm thinking of Hayes and Foss and William Foy. And
Sure.
these guys that God did reveal himself to them, they were already believers, and because God gave them a particular message to share, they ended up becoming less or unbelievers or less faithful in their Christian walk because
Yeah.
God had given them a specific revelation and it was too much for them.
Yeah.
So
yeah, God called them to obedience in a particular area. So God shows up, gives them all the evidence they need, but calls them to obedience they don't want to be.
yeah. So this idea that if only God would reveal himself, then we'll follow him or believe in him or trust him. The evidence is you're more likely to turn away from him than actually follow him.
Yeah.
If you're predisposed, if you're needing that to have faith in him. Like if your approach is I need God to show up and then I'll believe him or I'll follow him, you're more likely to not do it.
Actually not
if
do
he
it.
actually shows up in your life. And Jesus said that. He said, even if the prophets came back from the dead, you guys wouldn't believe.
You still wouldn't believe. Now, the beautiful thing about this story is that these guys' reaction is, hey, let's make haste to do what God said. Right? Like to do what the angel said.
Yeah.
Let's actually go and let's go and do it. Let's be obedient. And I think this was the greater point that I was wanting to make here is that, hey, this is what enables God to show up in your life, like a heart and a willingness to be obedient. If you don't want to be obedient to God, you do not want him to show up in your life in such a direct way because it'll lead to some very specific troubles and difficulties in your life. Let God have mercy on you by not showing up in such a direct way, but just choosing him and choosing to get to know him and follow him. Not that it wouldn't be a privilege for God to show up, but it really puts the, for people who God really like shows up to and manifests like this, yeah, it really puts the pedal to the metal.
You're listening to the Breakfast Show podcast on Faith FM. Positively different.
Producer Shell, what was the quiz answer?
According to Psalms 34, what does the angel of the Lord do for those who fear him? That is, he encamps around them.
He encamps around them.
That's the Bible verse that so my kids go to a Pathfinder club, which is kind of like Scouts, and that's the Pathfinder camp verse.
Wow.
God camps with the kids as they camp.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
That's a very
cute.
good pick for a verse.
Absolutely. Hey guys, the code word is #Bubsy again, but also we want to say if you can send us through your date of birth on that 0491064669 number, because we are going to be spinning the birthday draw at the end of this week. The special...
No, tomorrow. We're doing it
tomorrow.
So I have time to post that because this is our last week.
Oh, sure. Okay. Hey. We're going to be spinning it tomorrow. So it's now or never. If you are a December baby and you want something a little bit extra for your birthday, look, we're going to send you specifically a birthday present. We're not going to send you one of these half birthday, half Christmas deals that you've probably been dealing with your whole life. No, we are going to send you a birthday present. All you have to do is send through your day and month of birth to 0491064669. Hey, look, in our next hour, we're going to be talking about a bunch of things, including the mass shooting that has happened at Bondi. So you're going to have to stay tuned for that.
Thanks for being a part of the Faith FM family. Join our community on Facebook or get in touch at 1-800-FAITH-FM.